Hey everyone, it's VT Matty. The VOD that you're watching here is edited from the stream over at twitch.tv/Voltaic AIM. That's right, VOD review streams are back, once every month, over at the official Voltaic Twitch channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, which is edited down to show you the most informative and detailed VOD reviews from the latest stream. Thank you for watching.
Okay, same thing. Basically, 112 targets reload.
Oh, this one has like very wide spawns, like it's kind of like you have to play high FOV sometimes to kind of like make up for it.
Yeah, this is the one we were talking about where it would just be, what's it called? You'd want to run like 105 plus, maybe?
Yes.
I think I run 107. What do you run?
I don't really like this task, to be fair. I don't really think it's that useful because like for me, I believe that this task is it's kind of like too long, first of all. Like it's like 1 minute of like very wide flicks, kind of like tiring overall. And I don't really have this like sense of like clusters, like pathing and everything that I can work on. I actually prefer like the perfected variant overall, just first of all. And second of all, I think like whenever I play this, I'll kind of like run 107, but I try to kind of like go for like a RNG run. I don't really play this for like improvement nowadays. I don't think it's that useful. But that's like a hot take, I would say. If I were to like play this, I would play like 30-second version, so I can like fully go into speed without, you know, getting into this like high tension towards the end of the run to kind of like make up for like wide spawns, if that makes sense. Because on this task, like you kind of like either have to like maintain high tension and maybe like detens on like more of like a cluster spawns, or learn how to like release your tension fully at the end of the flick, or you just play 30-second version so you can kind of like get out of the comfort zone without having this risk of like going over like high tension as much.
I think that's something that I like. That's something I struggle with though, because on 116 targets, when I push that, like my runs always die at the very end due to tension and just being over the top.
Yeah.
So what I try to
kind of like reset your tension, like with clusters as well, I will say.
Yeah, I've been trying to practice like. Sometimes I do this depending on the space I am, where like if I'm in a bad spot on the mouse pad, I'll try to, like if I'm down here, picture my screen as the mouse pad, I'll try to take targets and clusters that'll put me back in towards the center. So it's something I need to get better with as well. Just managing tension and being able to play at more of those discomfort ranges. In terms of this, I kind of noticed you have like the slight sky pad wobble, and I call it this because it's
Okay.
whenever I see like Cartoon or Lucan playing static, and it's whenever you land and it takes you just a few more milliseconds to orient yourself right after that landing. And that you might think like on a scenario like this where it's so sparse, it's not really that debilitating, but it does waste quite a bit of time trying to correct that those landing errors. And you see when you try to engage a cluster with those kinds of landing errors, you lose that smoothness that you need to deal with the cluster. And this is something I attribute to Mini. The advice of almost not slowing down, but becoming more smooth in your transition between these two targets. And the reason for that is so that you don't instantly like spike your tension in the middle of this. You don't want to spike your tension and do like a very fast double click. You kind of just want to transition between these pretty smoothly. But here you fail to even transition into that, and I think the reason is because you're coming into these clusters and you're just flicking with a lot of tension. You're not releasing that before you land.
Also, like I feel like whenever he misses, he's kind of like going to this like fluctuation state when he wants to like make up for the miss by speeding up, and this kind of like makes it even worse at times because of the higher tension. So that's also like one of the biggest bad habits in players, when they kind of like try to make up for a miss with like increased speed, which then makes them kind of like start struggling a lot on average. Like whenever I miss, like I have something that I used to call free target buffer rule. So whenever I miss a target, I try to like slow down for the next free, to kind of like maintain like a good pacing and kind of like control in my technique. And I feel like here it's kind of like not working.
It's far better to just chain and hold on to your consistency rather than go for like a quick burst to make up for a miss. And that's true. I think that's true mostly in like 1 wall 6 targets. Like I've been trying to practice 1 wall 6. I'm trying to get 190 on the reload version and it's not working. But I tend to perform better when I just focus on chaining and like maintaining my accuracy in clusters. And if I happen to miss, like I'm not going to augment my pacing drastically.
Yeah, it's like a slight like decrease to kind of like maintain like a sense of discipline in your head, because like on this task on average you have to be really disciplined with the microcorrections, right? So like if you push into like a high tension after a miss and there's like a cluster, like let's say you have like a 2 target spawn being really close, we will most likely whiff like we did in the past. Like we saw this example before with the cluster. I feel like it was basically this when we missed and then we kind of like went in this like high tension pacing. So it was like a dramatic burst basically, as you described it. And you kind of like want to avoid it at all costs, like when we train our technique. Because on average, like even if you're going slower, but we hit more on this type of tasks, like we will most likely get a higher score as well. Because we can kind of like maintain fluidity for the next flicks, which on average gets like higher total amount of hits being presented with the end of the run.
Just trying to line up my notes here. And especially like releasing tension mid-flick, that helps a lot with fluidity on your next subsequent motion, right?
Yes.
Just as you said. Because if you land and you're not shaking here, as in this sequence, first of all, I don't even know which one you're pathing towards here. Yeah, you kind of, I feel like you got confused with this cluster, but I'm not really talking about pathing. If you engage this cluster, I would have gone maybe this one because it was closer, and then this one. The idea here is if you land very, very shakily on this one, then your smooth adjustment to the second target in the cluster is going to be messed up, or it's not going to look as fluid or be produced as quickly as it should be. So make sure we focus on this point, because yeah, it leads to a lot of these unnecessary misses. I'm trying to find a spot now where you did do it correctly so that you have an anchor point. That's probably a nice spot. So, came from up here. This was, I think, obviously this could have been like better speed and a little bit more clean, but for the most part, you wanna look for these occasions where you very clearly underflick, but you did land close to the target. And I want you to think about your approach to this. So where did you start to transition into a microcorrection? Where did you start to release your tension before you reach the target? Because if you watch players like Xianlo, if you watch players like Jasper, they always perform flicks like this, and they always have this visual quality where they'll land before the target, and it will become, you'll have a high tension burst at the start, and then a smooth deceleration, and that's what you really want to think about, is just where you're releasing that tension. Because for the most part, that will lead to like more efficient moving through the map and better fluidity.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, like while doing this, like we want to maintain underflicking form all the time, because this kind of like isn't up the microcorrection as well.
Especially on 1 wall 2, like.
Yes, yeah.
For so wide a map, it's
because
a great
this map
practice.
is a very like initial flick accuracy heavy type of task, right? So like you have to really work on the initial flick more than the micro, I would say. So like you have to treat initial flick as like a setup for the micro, and the better our setup is, the better our micro will be. So that's like a really important part there for sure.
What's it called? Practice scenarios. So practice. If you want to get better at like navigating these really wide flick situations, but you also want to deal with those clusters, just like in the previous VOD. Although honestly, like I feel like wide wall 4 target, or spelt out wide wall 4 targets.
Also, maybe wide wall 2 targets Voltaic horizontalish, because it has some sort of like clusters at times, so we can kind of like work on our right flicks into clusters, kind of like detensing. I feel like this could be cool. I feel like it's wide wall 2 targets Voltaic horizontalish, not WPS. I don't remember exactly, but it's very similar.
And I'm pretty sure there's, I'm trying to think, like really good fluidity sends. Pressure helps a lot with fluidity. Like it forces you to move through clusters Not just because the targets will like get bigger before they blow up and die on their own, but it helps you to instill that sense of like, oh, I can't remain fully static pace. So I'm gonna be recommending Fugla pressure, so that's also good. Okay, so preliminary like tip right here. Don't go back. It's messes up your pathing. It messes up like the rhythm that you're building. So don't loop back to the one that you missed. That's I reset. What I say is just literally just reset. Like try to punish yourself. You're not allowed to finish a run where you do that.
Like on this task, like really like the most important factor is to kind of like work on the pathing. Like no matter the skill level, I feel like that's the biggest kind of like score determining factor, if that makes sense. Because on this task, on average, the spawns are not that hard to perceive, and we can really like abuse the entire pathing if we like always know what's happening in our screen.
Like kind of abused on here. I think it's near the end. You'll see like some of the top players who play this scenario, they'll get stuck in a corner almost. Like I think I got stuck up here, and you won't leave this area because like generally like if you want to keep up your cluster speed, it's technically safe for me to stay here until I start running with bad spawns. Like I do venture away, but I wonder if it was
but like sometimes we kind of stay. Yeah, sometimes we kind of like stay in the range of like these clusters because we don't have to like flick away because they spawn in like a very convenient way.
Yeah. I mean, just look how long I stayed over there. From like 45 seconds onwards. I just get really lucky spawns. And then I move out when I see
yeah, and then you wait for another cluster. Yeah, pretty much that's kind of like how you play this on average.
And obviously I'm like flicking really fast, but you get away with it when you have really cognizant pathing.
I feel like we struggle a lot with like stability after the flick as well. Like in general, when I watch this, I see a lot of like shakiness on the landing part. Probably because we use tension to stop like our very fast flick, because it seems that we are pushing speed. I can see it, but then we generate a lot of like issues with the landing part.
I remember that Viscos tweet where she was like, "How do you stop your flicks?" And everyone was, I think everyone was piling up on the answer of use tension to stop your flick, and I'm like, that hurts fluidity a lot. Like that's not the most optimal way to do it.
Yeah, I even remember making an answer as well. I said that I kind of like changed my tension depending on the distance, right? And everyone was like, what the fuck is that? Like, well, it's like too much complication, you know? Like just like flick the dots. But I feel like that's kind of like what you want to get into when you aim train. You kind of like want to like nail down these like small things and kind of like look for the most consistent approach for like each distance you will flick for. Because if you can maintain like a good habits or like good consistency on all distances, then inside of the game, like you will have more confidence overall in your like entire flick approach. So like sometimes I would actually slow down a lot on the cluster part so I can kind of like ease up my click timing and microcorrection, kind of like Xionlo basically. But I don't like to maintain the same type of approach for all flicks because I feel like in game I would flick very fast with like a wider flick, because then it will make no sense for me to like kind of like be slower because there's like a sense of pressure that I will have to deal with in game. So that's kind of like my approach.
I think a lot of this is like falls under flick consciousness, so knowing where you're going and knowing where you're like generally gonna land. And a lot of people like to conflate this with like muscle memory, like knowing the distance that your aim will travel and how like changing your sensitivity will mess that up. That's not like the same kind of idea, but as you get better at static, you do develop a sense of what speed you need to flick at and how much tension you need to use to flick a certain amount of distance. So this between these two targets will be probably a higher amount of tension that you'll need to shift into your forearm to close this distance between target 1 and target 2. But then naturally, like, you will augment your approach for between targets 2 and target 3 because that's just naturally like, okay, this is closer together, so I don't need to push as much tension there. And
Yeah.
that's how you want to think of this. It's not something that like takes actual mental effort, like where you just say to yourself while playing the scenario, okay, I'm gonna flick slower here, or I'm going to flick less distance. It's something that you kind of practice and develop over time a sense for. It's not like hard coded, so to speak.
Yeah. Actually, it's very connected with the pathing. Like, we kind of like want to path, so like read the entire map, so kind of like condition our eye focus in a way so we know where to go after each click, right? So like if you have this like pathing in your head at all times, you kind of like always know where to aim, which makes your aim informed, which then makes these habits easier to go into. Like everything's connected there.
How much flick consciousness do you want in game? Says Killer Smasher 135. That's what I'm talking about. Like it's not really something quantifiable. It's just the sense that you have, like vibe
Yeah, it's
aiming.
like you have to build a habit. Yeah, yeah, pretty much. You just like want to develop confidence in your flick motions, so then when you play the game, you don't have to think about them that much. You just like make your aim informed, so like you see the target, and then after where you see them, you will like either flick fast, take time with the micro, or flick slow and actually click faster, right? So like it really depends on the context. And to build this context, you can play in trainers. You can play like one target small, for example. So like each time you have to like react to a new spawn at, you know, different distances. So kind of like make your aim informed before making the flick. You can play this type of tasks like wide wall 5 targets to develop the sense of like actively changing the approach mid-run. There's like so many ways. It's just like a side effect of the practice at the end.
Yeah, I'm kind of just drawing this out. It's
Yeah.
like what I was saying. It's why also you want to. It's why in that graphic that I made a while back on Twitter, you want to start off trying to like push flick speed. Like whenever I see a lot of beginner static players these days, they still refuse to flick, and the reason is because, and the way I drew this, they'll always end up like the blue arrow when they start off. When you're a beginner in aim training and you're starting to learn how to like really push your flick speed, you'll go like everywhere. But then as your hours get better, you'll start turning into the red arrow and then the green arrow once you start getting really good, and you'll start landing closer to the target. And that's what I mean by developing the sense for flick consciousness and where you're going to land. And pathing influences that, like you said. Like you'll be able to more easily prioritize targets and where to position yourself on the map for getting these opportunities. So if you're blue arrow, just keep grinding it and keep thinking about these concepts, specifically like how much tension you should be allocating, and also like I don't, what sends were we running here? I'm wondering.
They're playing on glass.
55. It was 55 CM.
I think they're
so,
playing
like,
on glass pad as well, no? Which kind of like makes sense as to why their flicks are kind of like shaky sometimes.
Yeah, just don't be afraid to go low sends and then back yourself up back to high sends. That's at first that's what made me really good at static, because by going such low sends like 91 CM like you're up and Bulldog, it kind of reinforced like how much speed that I needed to actually build up. So I was never really that fast of a flicking or a static player until I started to go like 80 CM, and then I actually like started really flicking and in the way that Bulldogs likes to talk about. So don't be afraid of that, because it'll make it easier for you to get this sense and like build it up instead of just like constantly aping all the time and missing the target completely. And it also just like it also just reinforces speed. Static wide wall 3 targets. Okay, we got an interesting one here.
Task. That's good. Oh, good Crosshair.
Yeah, I like this Crosshair. This almost looks like it's at a weird resolution because of that, but
it's like really good speed. And he knows the tech as well with the Crosshair, like kind of like matching the size of a target, so he can like speed up easily into the micro correction.
this is actually not bad. I think a lot of times, like, I think he has bad miss recovery sometimes. Like he doesn't really change his pacing all that much for a miss, and Like he continues missing. You almost saw there. He just continues to miss right after. And
Yeah, there's like no buffer like after the miss, kind of like buffering into like a proper technique, you know, like instantly kind of like making our like brain like realize we missed and we have to like kind of like look in for the
Here.
next two targets at least.
like
Yeah.
you're just edging, having to reload here.
Oh, like here I would restart. No cap.
I don't know how you got out of that without reloading, but
I mean, like yes, I feel like most about this round is like recoveries, to be fair, because like we have like really good speed, we have like good sense of like static technique, we are able to flick fast at wide ranges, we seem to be like aware where to flick at all times, but whenever we miss, we kind of like get into this like state of like either rushing our shots or like not really recovering from the miss.
yeah. Basically, just like a general tip that you should try to have is like when you miss, try to just position yourself to transfer into a mode where you're focusing more on visual confirmations. So just take that extra millisecond in your next few shots. Make sure you're on target, just to make sure that you're not like being pushed into a reload. That's what I do in Passu. In Passu, like when I start missing, I try to not slow down, but I try to make sure that my crosshair is on target, that I'm making sure that I confirm and that my next shot actually hits, just so I can avoid the reload. I'm very surprised that you didn't reload here, but that should be the main thing that's on your mind when you start missing a lot. And then slowly you can ramp up back to a high speed, and that's what happens in a lot of static runs from high level players. Their graph will almost look like they'll have a high burst and then they'll miss, and then they'll drop a little bit, and then they slowly ramp back up and save the run. But with you, it's like
buffer roll, pretty much.
Yeah, so the buffer would probably kick in around here. This is your miss buffer, where you're going to try to have sort of like several shots ahead in terms of okay, I'm gonna take these several shots ahead safely. I'm gonna try to keep this window of time where I'm recovering from my miss, and I'm going to practice really good technique, and I'm just gonna practice really high accuracy. And then I'm gonna slowly ramp up as I leave the window.
Yeah,
And,
because if you instantly ramp up, then your like graph looks even worse. It kind of like goes even below the initial like drop down, if that makes sense, for a bit.
Yeah, when you miss, it's almost like this, and you come back a little bit and then continue dropping. Practice scenarios. Just play the smaller version. Because honestly, your speed looks just fine, but accuracy below 95. Yeah, just generally you can play like that. Try to replicate the speed that you have here into the smaller version and see what happens. See how long you can maintain that. And honestly, like 30 seconds versions of static, try to maintain that speed there. You have really good speed, so let's see if you can hold it for 30 seconds, if not a minute. Do you have any recommendations? Scenarios?
Maybe like just like for the speed, so we can maintain the same type of like speed, right? Like the levels at like wider distances. Again, like aimers W2 easy maybe, so we can kind of like speed up like more efficiently without losing as much speed. Because I feel like when you like train your technique, you have to kind of like take into account that we can't really get rid of our speed at all. We should always like kind of like keep it in mind that we have to maintain the higher level.
Just rob wall 2 targets in general. I think there's a map that looks just like this that has the same kind of intention.
And the main focus is to like kind of like recover from the bad misses. Whenever we miss, we kind of like try to recover for like 2 hits maybe, for like 3 hits, then we go back to our pace.
Then,
I would love to take part in this sometimes. I'm really good with like CS and Valorant VOD reviews nowadays.
yeah, if there's maybe we can have like a Counter-Strike or a Valorant or
Overwatch, Apex, like
R6.
different categories. Yeah, and you like invite different people for like different games. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of cool. And yeah, thank you for the stream as well, guys. It was really fun.